Bill.
Well, again, everyone, good morning. It truly is. I have enjoyed my participation with Echo, and this is a particularly, I think, difficult and certainly, I would say, complicated area for us to deal with today. We were talking earlier, and there really is no one that knows all the answers, and it's truly as a result of programs such as Echo, where we have experts coming together as peers to share their knowledge and share their experience. And quite honestly, I've always gotten more out of these type of gatherings and interactions than sitting and listening to someone speak at me or listen to or myself trying to figure out what the writer of this book was trying to tell me. So I appreciate you all being here. I look forward to our interactions, and hopefully what we've put together for you here is going to be a little bit of obviously knowledge that you know. In some cases, it might be some directions maybe to go in the future. But hopefully at the end of the project here, you'll see that there's some little nugget somewhere in this that you'll be able to take back and make use of. I did not do all this alone. As with all things in HR, we can build on the building blocks of others. Owen Doherty here, I've given credit for, as he did do a basic core presentation earlier than myself. And I've added to that to hopefully encourage some participation by you folks at the end in our question and answer series. Go ahead, Melissa. Preparation and training. Just the topic itself, I thought was an interesting way of beginning our process. You know, a lot of things that we do in the HR side of things involve either success or failure. And I think it's primarily due to the amount of preparation and training that we do within our own spheres. My background is in manufacturing. So I know it's very different, and I've learned so much from the medical side of things when it comes to care-related facilities, hospitals, etc. But from a manufacturing background, the first thing, and I think it really covers all areas. The first thing is that we really need to, excuse me, that was my dog pressing my automatic table here. Let me put this back. Again, getting back on topic, it really comes back to soliciting top management buy-in from anything that we're trying to do. So if we are really going to go into a situation where we want to be a company that's known, that's friendly, that's open to hiring those with substance use disorder, then we've got to start with top management. I've seen many companies, I've seen many sites where not having that is really dooming the process to failure to begin with. So I would certainly look at what you have, what are they looking for, and you have to do that by identifying your own company culture. Each one is different. Each site can be different. So you have some assessment tools out there, surveys, anonymous questionnaires, all of those things that I'm sure many of you are already familiar with. But those are the types of things that you want to combine and present to top management as a methodology of saying, here's where we are. This is where our company is really falling into. And from that, then we need to identify some goals and objectives. All of this to keep everybody on the same page. Go ahead, Melissa. How to identify resources. That's one of the key areas here. One of the things you need to ask early and upfront is, what are the key questions that I need to ask to identify my internal resources? And there may be many, or there may be few. The mere size of our organization can determine this sometimes. But if I'm going to need outside resources, then I need to know that early. And I need to know what type of resources so that I can identify costs and budget. Nothing impresses upper management tights I'll call them the ivory tower types because I was in HR and I guess I was part of that for a while. But you have to identify costs and budget. Be prepared to answer those questions. By doing that homework, that will enable you to get their go ahead and their buy in to create policies that will state not only what you plan on doing, how you're going to do it, and what the consequences of the policy is if it's not followed. That's important. One of the things that we tend not to want to deal with is that there will be consequences if the policies aren't followed. There have to be in order to have an ordered workforce. That's one of the things that rubs against our initial response of wanting to be that right company, that inviting company that's going to be prepared to deal with those who are dealing with substance use disorder. So know what these are and be comfortable with what they are before you start, implementing. And that's the key process here. Next one. Again, as I've said before, education is huge. I think we all know that, especially those of us in HR. Education is so important no matter what we're doing, no matter what topic we're dealing with. All of this for a company to go into and wanting to be that company of choice requires understanding and acceptance, not only at the upper management level. That buy-in is necessary right up front, but at all levels within the organization. I would make an example here. In manufacturing, we deal with a lot of supervisors, group leaders, assistant supervisors, managers, directors. If we don't have these folks in on the process, knowing what our goals are, and being educated enough to get us to our goals and achieve those goals, then it's going to fall apart. And those of us in HR have all been in part of the process where people say, oh no, here comes another program from HR. And that's what we don't want. We want this to be a way of life. We want this to be a very positive experience for all people. But we've got to know what we're dealing with first, and that requires education. One of the things that I've noted here, and I'm using again my manufacturing background, and you can certainly apply this to your own unique situations, but repetitive educational sessions for our management folks tied to existing safety programs, for example. Most of us are required to, abide by a number of laws, whether it be OSHA, whether it be EEOC, whether it be, I can go down that list, state, federal, all this. So we're required to educate many times on a yearly basis and to provide proof of that. There's nothing better than to tie what we're trying to do here in this program, because we want it to be a core program. We want it to be just like our quality programs, just like our informational programs, our safety programs. And that way we can keep misinformation current and keep information current and misinformation to a minimum. That's the key. And in order to do that, whether we've got the HR director who's on board and has the education is very different than that second shift supervisor or third shift supervisor who doesn't have ties to the office in the evenings. And they're going to have to answer these questions, and they're going to have to present. They are the company. They are representing you. And if they don't know the answers, and if they walk down paths you don't want them to walk down, you're going to have issues. Third-party speakers. These are fantastic. We talked earlier in other sessions, and I mentioned having relationships with third parties. Here's where those relationships can help and blossom as well. Many times they will have speakers available to come in and in related fields help you to keep that information as seen from not coming from management, not coming from HR, but seen as unbiased. Because HR sometimes, we stand in front at the podium and try to relay a policy or how we want a procedure to go. And we're coming from a biased standpoint in their eyes. So another way to keep that from happening is to bring in third-party speakers and present the information untied to that particular bias. Next. Where do you start? This is a difficult question, and certainly this isn't the end all for you. But it really does start after by establishing policies. Um, there's an awful lot of help out there in order for you to get it. For those that are directly involved with HR, the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, is certainly a fantastic resource. We have an awful lot of, for this particular program, an awful lot of resources that Melissa can share with the group that we were given by the Department of Labor and Industry as a list of resources, which is a fantastic document. I've never seen that before until the last session, and certainly we'll need to get that distributed. But those are the types of things you want to get them established. You also want to get the legal review. Now, I'm out of my depth here, and certainly glad that Jim's joining us this time. But there's always a need to have a legal review. Your documentation of what is not going to run into another law. Many of our laws coexist, but they don't exist. They don't coexist to help you in HR. Many times they're at odds with each other. But you can and should get a legal review of your policy before you get anything out there. But once you get that done, then you go back to your education again. You educate yearly, sometimes you educate quarterly. You decide what's necessary, but you need to educate where necessary on all of these issues to keep your information fresh and to keep misinformation from being put out there. Go ahead, Melissa. Of course, working with communities to address our particular issue, especially with the opioid crisis, the Opioid Response Network was created. That's part of SAMHSA's grant. And as a result, obviously, individuals and other organizations are provided assistance with resources, training, technical assistance that they need locally to address this. That technical assistance is available to support evidence-based prevention and treatment and recovery of OUD. ORN itself, if you're not familiar, and I'm sure many of you are, provides that local experienced consultants in prevention, treatment, and recovery to help address these issues. They can certainly be part of that third-party address in what we were talking about before. Any requests for education and training, we put a note there for you to follow that link. And of course, each state and territory has a designated team led by regional regional technology transfer specialist. Get that 3 times. Okay, next. And of course, just a definition for those that may not know some of the details. The Opioid Response Network is a coalition of 46 national organizations representing over 2 million constituents, providing education and training opportunities across the prevention, treatment, recovery, and harm reduction of opioid, stimulant, and other substance use disorders. Their approach to build on existing efforts. Again, why redo the whole wall when you've already got half of it built? Enhance, refine, and fill in the gaps when needed while avoiding duplication and not recreating the wheel. Overall mission is to provide that training and technical assistance via local experts to enhance prevention of treatment, especially medication-assisted treatment, like buprenorphine, naltrexone, and methadone, which we've heard about with Paul's presentation earlier, and recovery efforts across the country addressing state and local specific needs. This is an interesting slide, and I'm sure we'll come back to it in the question and answer period, but substance use disorder is an illness. It affects people from all walks of life and all age groups, as we've heard earlier. These illnesses are common, recurrent, and often serious, but they're treatable, and many people do recover. And I had a little asterisk there at the bottom, because if we understand that substance use disorder is a health condition, Shouldn't we interact with the individual who approaches us as a candidate for employment as we would with anyone who has a health condition? When you think about that for a moment, some of the initial questions might go away because it might make a little more sense to us as we're preparing for those interviews. Go ahead, Melissa. Why do we hire recovering people? Quite honestly, from personal experience, and I know from many out there will probably, be able to support this themselves, there's a motivation to succeed. It is probably more prevalent in any group identified as candidates coming into your organization. There is a definite motivation there that it can be built upon. There's resilience. You know what these folks are going through and have gone through. And quite honestly, that relates no matter what the job is in terms of their persistence and their willingness to get the job done. And as employers, that's really what we want to get done. There's a gratitude. I've seen it personally with those that have been provided opportunities, and that gratitude certainly helps with attitude on the job. It helps with a lot of things. That additional chance is something that cannot be ignored and really should be underlined. And quite frankly, it's good business. Go ahead, Melissa. What? Oh, this is the walking through a minefield question. What if the person's recovery comes up during the interview? We've all been schooled by our legal experts. No offense, Jim, but we've been warned of the landmines, and there are landmines out there, folks. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that. But if you take the generality here to heart, if you proceed as you would with other health conditions, be curious. Ask what they've learned from the experience. Ask how their experiences have prepared them for the position that you're interviewing them for. Ask about accommodations. We all know ADA and the related laws that are involved there, but ask up front, what accommodations might you need? And of course, asking them why their experiences make them the best candidate for the position gives them an opportunity to express what they're there for and why, and why you should. And quite honestly, I think you will be surprised at their responses, pleasantly so. Go ahead. What about past substance use? What about questions there? Well, here's how you do it. You reframe those questions and talk about the candidate's recovery. Some of the examples I placed here just to get you through. What have you learned through recovery? How does what you've learned prepare you for this work? How's your life different from today? From yesterday or from years past? What experiences relate to your ability to do this work? What supports your recovery? That's an interesting question, because you may find out things not only that you can do at work to enhance those support mechanisms, but you might find out some things of what's going on in their personal lives that will help you tie some of that things in with your policies and procedures as well. And ask them outright, how will this impact your ability to work with us? Not knowing those questions can set this person up for failure, and you don't want to do that. So these are the ways to get to the answers without walking through the minefield that we all know is out there. What about medication-assisted recovery? Okay, here's where the questions come in here. How will this impact your ability to do the job? If there are times that they need to be off shift, if there are times when they need to be accommodated by shift hours, these types of things can all be tied to your policies on attendance, on short-term disability. You need to know what the requirements are here and how that can be accommodated in your system. Can we make them? Be honest, be upfront, know what those accommodations are, or if you don't know, be honest and tell the candidate that I'm going to have to check on this. I'll be back with you. I'll do these things so that we can look to find a positive outcome in this process. And the last question tends not to be asked because it tends to be a one-sided process if not done properly. And that is, what other supports do you need from us? I think the HR person, the interviewer, needs to know that because they need to be able to present the job then as it relates to the needs of the candidate in order to make this a successful placement. Go ahead, Melissa. Language and stigma. We touched on this on earlier segments, and I thought this was kind of necessary to throw in here again as just as an enforcement. We really, and I say this by myself included, there is a stigma about people with SUD that might include inaccurate or unfounded thoughts, like they're dangerous, incapable of managing treatment, or at fault for their condition. I am extremely concerned about the fact that in manufacturing, when you get out to these second and third shifts specifically, there's a lot of unnoticed and unmanaged situations where if that bias is out there in a second shift group leader or an assistant supervisor, you're going to need to know that. So you need to make sure that you're working through your education process to keep that at least as much of a minimum, if not eradicated as much as possible. The stigma may stem from antiquated and inaccurate beliefs that addiction is a moral failing. I've seen it. I know we've all seen it in different areas. Certainly in manufacturing, it's still out there. I wish I could say it wasn't. But instead of what we know it to be, which is a chronic, treatable disease from which patients do and can recover and continue to lead healthy lives, that language we use can reinforce stigma and discrimination if not attended to. So I would definitely look at our policies and procedures. It's amazing if you look back on what you have now and look at that just with this one slide. I will guarantee you that you will find language in your current policies and procedures that will make you cringe, because policies and procedures from an HR person, I will tell you, they tend to be initiated and forgotten. It takes a system, it takes a workable system to make sure that they are reviewed annually, that they are updated, that they are corrected, and that they are correct. So I would throw that out there as a challenge for everyone. If you do nothing else today, this is one that I had a personal pet peeve with in my own organizations. So I would like to kind of take that note of that and see how you make out. Go ahead, Melissa. What don't you want to do? You don't want to hire a person just because they're recovering from SUD. Focus your interview and analysis solely on the person's substance use. Ignore your own biases about substance use disorder. That last one is huge. You know, one of the things we need to do as professionals in our own organizations, especially with this hiring capability and responsibility, we all have some biases. They might be deep. They might be because we've been on the planet and have longer teeth than others or less hair. But it might be because we're coming in with a very different approach. You know, we might be brand new to HR and not even realize what our biases are. So it's two ends of a spectrum, but there is a spectrum out there. So try and identify your own biases about substance use disorder and apply that education yourself into your process of interviewing. Go ahead, Melissa. We put some additional resources here and available, and I did not add the one that I mentioned earlier, and that was the one that we received at last session from Department of Labor and Industry, which is a fantastic document, by the way. We have a huge amount of available resources listed there that, quite honestly, if you're looking for a place to go, I was very impressed with. So we really need to thank our partner from L&I for doing that for us. And next, there's some website information links and email, telephone links on the ORN network, so you can get any additional information that you might need there that we don't have time for.